On today's episode, we're going to completely restore the paint on my 1983 Chevy K10 to make her look like she just rolled off the dealer lot, even if it's a used dealer lot. Welcome to the Crank Up TV channel. Alrighty, so before we start stripping paint off this old girl, I figure I'll give you guys a once-over of what we're going to be doing here today. So obviously the paint on this old girl isn't really the best, and there's just some areas on the truck that we're not going to be able to fix. Like all these rock chips on the fender here, those are going to have to stay. But what we are looking to do today is take care of all the areas of surface rust that are on this truck before I start taking her out on the road. And the reason I want to do that is because out here in Pennsylvania, they really like to throw a lot of salt down the roads during the winter. And with the amount of surface rust that's on this rig here, if I start driving her, within about a year or two, those spots of surface rust are going to turn into giant gaping holes on my fenders and bed. And I just don't want to see that happen to a fine piece of American machinery such as this one right here. So ideally, to take care of all the surface rust on this old girl, we'd really have to give her a full paint job just because of how many rock chips are on this paint. But since we can't yet do that here in the cranking garage, we're going to give her the next best thing, which is just a little bit of spray paint treatment from Rust-Oleum and some color match spray paint. And then to blend that all together at the end, we're going to give her a little bit of polish just to make sure she looks good from at least 50 feet away. Then after that, we have this here McGuire's clay bar kit. And as much as I would like to clay bar the entire truck with the condition that this paint's in, it's just really not worth doing. So we're only going to save this if there's embedded dirt in the paint that doesn't want to come out from a regular washing. But enough of me talking here. The first thing we have to do is break out the old Hyundai Grit sandpaper and get to sanding off all that surface rust. So let's get to it. So I figure this driver's side fender is as good a place as any to start sanding. But as I'm coming in here taking a closer look, I can already see where they resprayed this truck like 30 times before. Hopefully when we do it this time though, it'll actually look pretty decent. Well, we finished up all the sanding on the old Colorado K10, and I'll bring you on in here so we can get a better look at her. As you can see, there is still a little bit of surface rust going around the wheel wells, and normally if I was giving this truck a full paint job, I would definitely take all of this off here. But what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to slow down the rust and stop it from spreading until we can give the truck a paint job. So for now, this is going to be good enough to lay down some primer on her. Coming on over here, the rockers, they cleaned up pretty nice too. There really wasn't much rust on them to begin with, but there was some going along this strip here, so I took care of that. And I even sanded down right underneath there where it meets the inner rocker, just so we have a nice clean surface when we go to paint them. And just to show you guys the passenger side over here, she cleaned up pretty nice as well. And the nice thing is we got right down to bare metal, so at least we know that there's no Bondo in the rockers. So even though most of the areas we sanded on this truck did clean up pretty nice, there are two problem spots that I found that we might not be able to take care of. One of them I did know about, and the other one, well, not so much. And the one that I didn't know about, we're definitely going to have to at least try and fix it because it looks really bad on the truck, and you can see it from like 3,000 feet away. So I'll just bring you guys on over here, and we'll take a gander at her together. So the first problem area I found on the truck is this right here. And as you can see, someone decided to do some beautiful body work on her, and it really sucks to have to fix this because it just looks so good. But they just decided to slather a bunch of Bondo over on top of a bunch of rust, as you can see. And then that just trapped it in there and made it come right on through the other side. So the thing is, if I were to pick this metal back anymore, it would turn into a giant hole because you can see, oh yeah, that looks pretty nice. She's already starting to come apart on me. So I think we're just going to fold that right back over like that. And I do have a plan to fix this because right now you can see her from like 3,000 feet away. And we want to make sure you can only see it from about 1,500 to 2,000 feet away. So that way we can enter her into some shows. So besides that professional repair going on in the bed over there, the other problem area on this truck is the bottom of both the driver and passenger's doors. Now I did know they were rotted when I bought the truck, but I wasn't really sure how bad they were. And as you can see from the decaying metal, well, they're pretty bad. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to leave these like this for now because even if I were to sand and paint them, they'd still have to be repaired or replaced later on in the future. I'd rather focus on the areas of the truck that aren't completely rotted because we're about to start painting her. it's a new day, and as you can see, we're saving the best area of the truck for last. It's pretty windy out today, so we're going to try to paint in between the gusts of wind, and hopefully that helps a little bit with not getting paint everywhere. Probably won't, but we'll do it anyway. Let me just finish up painting this wheel well. I'll put one more coat of primer on her, and then I'll show you guys what I'm doing for this troubled spot right here. And now I know you might be saying, but crank up TV with an expert repair like this, why do you even want to touch it? It looks absolutely beautiful. Well, as much as I like the movable bedside option here, it just doesn't look the best when you're going down the road. So we're going to repair this in a way that I would actually not normally do things. And it's going to pain me to do this, but it's going to make it look a lot better, at least for a few months before we can repair the bedside the right way. So the first thing we're going to do is take our sandpaper and just lightly start sanding away all the areas of surface rust that we can see. And now that we've got our area sanded, we're going to prep our surface just a little bit here. Make sure she's nice and clean for the professional job we're about to do. And now here's the part that pains me, because if you know me, you know that I hate painting over rust, but we're gonna have to do it for today. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna take some of this spray paint and just cover her up nice and good. We don't want too thick of a coat. We're gonna leave that first coat on there and hopefully it doesn't run too much. And then we're gonna come back and give her a second coat and then a third coat. And then she's pretty much fully restored at that point. Now, before all you guys go on ahead and attack me in the comments about this, just know it's only a temporary fix, and this bedside is most likely going to get completely replaced over the summer when the truck gets a paint job. This is just, like I said, to make her look good from further away. When you get up close, obviously it's not going to look that good, but when she's going down the road, she should look pretty nice. Well, after about 3 coats of paint, here's how she turned out. Now, up close, it doesn't look too good, but if you come back over here, well, she still looks pretty bad, but it's better than having rust bubbles there, and that's the main thing that we were going for. So what we're going to do while that's drying over there is come right on over here and get all the areas that we primered yesterday ready for some paint. What we're going to do is just take a little Scotch-Brite pad and scuff up the area, so that way that paint has a nice surface to stick to. So let me get to doing that, and I'll see you in a bit. Well, we just got done scuffing up this side of the truck, and I figured before I lay down some paint on her, I'll show you how that primer from yesterday came out. There are a few areas that you're going to see even in the final coat of paint, like this right here is definitely going to show up, but it will stop any rust from advancing further than it was. The rest of the wheel wells came out pretty much the same way, and both sides of the rockers did too. They came out super nice and smooth, so all I had to do is go over them with a Scotch-Brite pad, but I think we're finally ready to start laying down some paint. Well, it's a new day, and I think we're finally ready to start doing some paintless paint correction on this old girl. I did give that new paint a few days to dry, so hopefully when we hit it with polish, it doesn't immediately just rip right off the truck. Before we do that though, let me bring you guys in here and show you how that new paint came out, because it actually looks a lot better than I expected it to. Alrighty, so as you can see, that new paint blended into the old paint pretty well, and there is a little bit of a line here where you kind of see a difference, but that's just because the new paint's a little bit shinier than the old paint is. Hopefully that polish will help bring her together and she'll all look like one paint job in the end though. Coming down the side of the truck here, as you can see, all along the bottom came out really nice. I didn't paint the doors because, like I said, they're all rusty already. But you can see the new paint transitions really well into the old paint. The only way you can tell that the old paint's there is it's a little more faded and there's some dirt in it, which should come out when we wash the truck. Coming over here, the rockers. Don't mind the squeaky door here. These laid down the best out of all the areas on the truck because, as you can see, look how nice and smooth that came out. Coming down the side of the bed here, as you can see, it blended together really well with the old paint. And this is what happens when you don't do any body work. You just get a bunch of these rock chips and paint chips that were in your old paint, and now they're showing through your new paint, but at least it's not rust, so we're not too worried about it. The other side of the truck looks pretty much just as good, minus all the dents in it. And here's that professional flexible bedside repair we did. As you can see, there's a little bit of rust in there, but once you close her up, she's pretty much ready to go to Barrett Jackson. So besides that expert repair there, the rest of the truck came out pretty darn good, and I think we're ready to move on to the next step of paint correction, which is going to be giving her a bath, because you can literally draw on this paint with how much dirt's on it. So let's fire up this pressure washer and make her shine. Hopefully you can work here, Hoss. You better run, unlike everything else I own. She's a little chokage. Well, the truck's in the garage again, and we have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that all the paint stayed on the truck when we were giving her a bath, so at least we're not going to have any giant spots of missing paint. But the bad news is that a lot of dirt also stayed on the paint, and I don't know why that was. I washed it twice pretty good. I did a touchless wash and then a mitt wash, and I was thinking that would have gotten most of the dirt out of the paint, but there's still a lot more left than I expected, so I'll turn the camera around and show you guys what we're working with. So as you can see, once you get up close here, besides the paint looking absolutely terrible, there's just a ton of dirt in it. And I think that's because the dirt's just been embedded in there so long that just doing a wash probably won't take it out. Even on the side of the fender here, as you can see, it's completely filthy. So I really don't think there's too much else we could do washing-wise for this pickup, because even if I gave it a third or fourth bath, some of that dirt is just so embedded in there, it probably still wouldn't come out. So I think the next step is going to be to break out this here clay bar, and we're going to go over all the areas of stubborn dirt, and hopefully this takes them out, and then we can get to polishing. So before we get in the clay bar here, I figured I'll tell you guys a little bit about what these units are and how they work for anyone that's never used them before, because up until 3 years ago, I had no idea these little things even existed. So contrary to what the name might say, these actually aren't made from clay. They're made from polymers and synthetic resins and just a bunch of fancy stuff, but all you really need to know is that it cleans your paint. And the way it works is you just take your little clay bar here and some sort of lubricant. You can use a detailing spray they give you in the clay bar kits, or you can use soapy water too, which is mainly what I use. And you'll just take a little bit and spray it right over here on your vehicle. Then you just want to take your clay and rub it back and forth on the fender or hood or wherever you're doing it on your vehicle there. And eventually, as you're rubbing it in the paint, you'll notice that the paint's getting smoother and smoother. And when you look at your clay bar, it should be getting dirtier and dirtier. And what that means is that the clay bar is just taking up all the imperfections and dirt that's in your paint and trapping them in this little clay bar. And that just makes sure that when you move on to the next step, which is compounding or polishing, that you're not rubbing all that embedded dirt into the paint, which would cause even more scratches and kind of defeat the whole purpose of doing a paint restoration here. Boom. Dang it. Alrighty, we've got our brand new clay bar here. What we're going to do is we're just going to do half the hood with the clay bar and half the hood without it, just to see how much of a difference it actually makes. So let's get to it. Well, after a few passes with the clay bar, here's what we wound up with. As you can see, there's still a little bit of dirt in the paint, but it definitely looks a lot better than the passenger side, which we didn't clay bar at all. And There's just a ton of dirt over here, so we're going to get that taken care of next too. Coming over here, I did try out some polishes on the truck just to see if the truck's paint would even polish out at all. I was kind of worried that this paint was a matte finish since the truck's been repainted so many times that we wouldn't be able to get a shine out of it, but this is with just polish right here, and as you can see, it shines up a lot better in the paint around it. Then I came over here and did just compound, which is even better than just a polish. And then I came over here and did compounded polish. As you can see, there's still some scratches in it, but the paint is so nice and shiny. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a compound first instead of just jumping into the polish. And that should make this old girl shine just like the day she left the factory. But first we have to finish clay bar and the rest of this paint because there's still a ton of dirt in it. So I'll see you in a bit. Well, I've got the entire truck clay barred, and as you can see, it definitely brought out some shine in the paint. Plus, it feels nice and smooth now, so I think we're ready to move on to some compound. What this should do is this should get rid of all that fading and oxidation in the paint and hopefully make this color pop a little more. I tried it out in a few different areas of the truck, and they all came out really good, so I think we're going to do before we do the entire thing is we'll do half the hood with compound and half the hood without compound just to see how much shine it really gets out of this old paint. So, let's get to it. Well, after laying down some compound on it, here's what we're left with. As you can see, we definitely got some shine out of the paint, and once you come over to the passenger side, you can really see the difference. There is still a little bit of haze in her, though, and I'm hoping that the polish over there will take that out. So I think we should be good to go in that department, and there were some spots where they did some touch-up on her, so as you can see, we're definitely not going to be getting any shine out of those, but considering how this paint looked before, I think we did pretty good. Compounding that hood by hand did take a lot longer than I was expecting, so I wound up breaking out. Let's see if we can get it over here. The old orbital polisher. Now this one, for some reason on the box, says it's only for applying wax. I have no idea why, because it's the same pad I'm using to put compound on a truck by hand. So we're going to give her a try, and hopefully she comes out pretty good. If not, then yes, I'll have to compound and polish the whole truck by hand. But either way, it's not going to get done by me standing here talking, so let's get to it. Well, it's a new day, and we've got all the compounding done in the old Colorado K10 here. And as you can see, she came out really, really nice. And this isn't even the final step in paint correction because we still have to do a polish and a wax on the old girl. Before we get into that, though, let me flip the camera around for you guys, and we'll take an in-depth look at this shiny goodness behind me here. So coming in here for a closer inspection of the old girl, I really wasn't expecting this paint to come out this good. As you can see, there's a lot more depth in it now, and all that oxidation is gone. There were a few spots like these right here where I think someone tried to do some touch-up on it. And no matter how many times I would go over any of those spots, it just would not want to shine like the rest of the paint. So until the old girl gets a full paint job, that's just going to have to stay like that for now. Even on the side of the truck here, coming down the fender, she came out really, really nice. The only part I was kind of disappointed about was right here where the new paint meets the old paint. I was kind of hoping they would just meet up and blend together nicely in the middle, and well, they met up, but they didn't really blend together that nice, so we're just going to have to deal with that for now, but at least it looks a lot better than having a bunch of rust going down the sides of the truck. Over here on the door, the whole thing shined up really nice, except for this little dent where they used some sort of house paint to fill it in. Couldn't really get that to shine like the rest of the paint, but just like the rest of the truck, she still looks good from about 100 feet away. Coming over here to the side of the bed, there were some areas of primer showing through, and I wasn't really sure how they would come out, but I did go over them with compound anyway, and we wound up getting some shine out of them, as you can see, so I was pretty happy with that. Even on the side of the bed rails here where the paint's chipping and flaking off, I went over the entire thing with compound. All the areas that had paint left on them shined up pretty good, so hopefully that just makes this old girl look like one nice shiny unit when she's cruising down the interstate. Now, I would show you guys the other side of the bed, but I actually wound up getting a little bit ahead of myself and polished the entire thing already, and I don't want to reveal her just quite yet. What we can do, though, is come right on over here to the hood, and I'll do half the hood in polish and half the hood in compound, just so we can get a little bit of a comparison, and after I'm done with that, we'll get to polishing the rest of the truck, so let's get to it. Let's just get a little bit laid out here on the old girl. A little bit more probably won't hurt. And just like that, we have half the hood polished, and you can definitely see a difference between the two sides here. This side is just compound on, and it still has kind of that yellow haze going over it. The side we put some polish on is a lot more vibrant. That's what the polish is supposed to do. Just brings out the shine of the paint a little bit more. But since I am pretty happy with how that came out, I think we're going to come right on over here and get to doing the rest of the truck. And just like that, in under 1 second, the entire truck is polished and looking nice and shiny, so that means we're ready to move on to the next and final step, which is laying down some wax on this paint. So for the wax on this old girl, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I went ahead and picked up this here Chemical Guys Hydro Slick Ceramic Coating Hyper Wax. I've been wanting to try something like this out for a while, and I figured the old Colorado K10 is the perfect test subject. Apparently this is like a ceramic coating and a wax all mixed into one. I will warn you guys though, it is a little bit expensive, but it does say on the back of the bottle here that it lasts up to 12 months, so maybe it's worth it. Either way, I lost her receipt and can't return it now, so let's put some on this old pickup truck and see how she does. I guess we'll do this little strip here as a test area for her. Just lay some down. Beautiful. Look at that. And then it says here just to rub it into the paint and let it sit for 1 to 2 minutes, so let's do that. Well, I didn't think this paint could get any shinier, but it's actually turning out pretty nice. Heck yeah. And now for the most important test, let's see if it'll actually slide off the hood like it does in all those other YouTube videos where they're using this stuff. Oh, heck yeah. Look at that. It actually works. Oh. Well, that right there pretty much makes the whole thing worth it, so let's get to putting this on the rest of the truck. Heck yeah. guys, 1983 Chevy K10, full paint correction and rust repair, all finished up. And dang, does she look pretty good. Now, if you remember in the last episode, I did say I had a surprise for this little girl that I'd be showing you guys in this episode. So before we finish up here for tonight, let me go grab that really quick and show you guys what I'm talking about. Now, you may have noticed in the background of my last video if you were paying attention, but we finally have the head for the old Colorado K10 back from the machine shop. And that means in the next video, we're going to get this little girl running, driving, and put back on the road for the first time in almost a year. But if you want to see that, and what kind of performance upgrade we did to this old head here, you'll have to stick around for the next one right here on the Crankin' TV channel.